Marian Bowman Jr., South Carolina, January 31st. On a chill February night in 2001, 21-year-old Candy Martin thought she was giving high school friend Marian Bowman Jr. a harmless lift across Dorchester County. Bowman demanded the return of a few $100 loan, shot her when she begged for time, shoved her body into her Chevrolet's trunk, and torched the car deep in a pine thicket. Dental records identified the charred remains. Witnesses recalled Bowman flashing burnt skin on his hands, and a cellmate later testified that he bragged the fire had burned the truth away. A jury needed just 2 hours in 2002 to deliver death. For 22 years, Bowman filed appeals accusing his attorney of racism and pointing to a jailhouse confession by another man, but state and federal courts found the evidence overwhelming. South Carolina finally secured lethal injection drugs under a new secrecy law, making Bowman the nation's first execution of 2025. His last meal was a coastal feast: fried shrimp, fish, oysters, chicken wings, onion rings, banana pudding, and German chocolate cake, washed down with pineapple cranberry juice. As the pentobarbital flowed at 6:27 p.m., he recited a poem that closed, "Love is my alibi." Outside, Candy's mother whispered, "Love can't unburn a daughter." Stephen LeWayne Nelson, Texas, February 5th. Arbor Point Church in Arlington was prepping Sunday bulletins on March 3, 2011, when Stephen Nelson burst in looking for quick cash. He bound 28-year-old Pastor Clint Dobson with audio cables, pistol-whipped and smothered him under a plastic trash bag, then beat 67-year-old Secretary Judy Elliott and fled in their Mazda. Fingerprints on the abandoned car, stolen laptops pinging at a pawn shop, and surveillance video led police to Nelson 6 hours later. Shown crime scene photos, he quipped, "When I kill, I enjoy it." Tarrant County jurors agreed and sentenced him to death in 2012. 13 years of appeals, ineffective counsel, DNA questions, accomplice theories, collapsed in early 2025. Texas no longer honors special food requests, so Nelson ate the standard tray of chicken fried steak, pinto beans, and cornbread. Strapped to the Huntsville gurney, he turned to his wife in the witness room. "Give Monkey a hug for me. I'm at peace. Let's ride, Warden." The drugs silenced him at 6:50 p.m., the first Texan executed this year. Demetrius Terrence Frasier, Alabama, February 6th. Detroit drifter Demetrius Frasier was already serving life for a 1992 murder when Alabama extradited him for an earlier horror. On 27 November 1991, he broke into Pauline Brown's Birmingham apartment, raped the 41-year-old, and shot her twice beneath her half-trimmed Christmas tree. Casings matched his gun. A Detroit motel search uncovered Brown's class ring. Frasier confessed, then recanted, claiming coercion and brain damage, but a 1996 jury took 90 minutes to pronounce death. After decades of failed petitions, he volunteered for Alabama's new nitrogen hypoxia protocol, hoping the experimental gas would spark a constitutional fight. At 6:10 p.m. on 6 February 2025, prison staff sealed a clear mask over his face and released pure nitrogen. Witnesses counted 26 minutes before the doctor declared him dead. His last meal? Taco Bell beefy 5-layer burrito, chicken chalupa, 3 crunchy tacos, chips, and Mountain Dew, lay half-eaten. Seconds before the gas hissed, he saluted. "Detroit strong. Love y'all. Let's go." Outside Holman, Brown's daughter clutched a photo. After 33 Christmases, Mom can rest. James Dennis Ford, Florida, February 13th. A spring fishing trip in April 1997 turned nightmare when farmhand James Dennis Ford drew a rifle on co-worker Gregory Malnery near Punta Gorda. He shot Gregory, beat and raped Gregory's wife Kimberly on the riverbank, slit her throat, fired a final bullet, then abandoned the couple's 22-month-old in a blood-streaked pickup. Rescuers found the toddler 2 days later, dehydrated but alive. DNA on Ford's rifle, tire impressions, and his attempt to pawn Kimberly's wedding ring cemented a guilty verdict in 1999. Jurors wept as the death sentence was read. For a quarter-century, Ford argued fetal alcohol syndrome and intellectual disability. Yet, on 12 February 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court refused to intervene. In the death chamber holding cell, he devoured ribeye steak, mac and cheese, fried okra, sweet potato casserole, pumpkin pie, and sweet tea. His written note read, "Hugs, prayers, love, God bless everyone." But he spoke none of it aloud when the curtain rose. At 6:19 p.m., the three-drug cocktail stilled his heart. Kimberly's stepmother whispered, "He died easier than they did," but justice finally came. Richard Lee Tabler, Texas, February 13th. Thanksgiving. 2004, Leane, small-time hustler. Richard Tabler pulled club owner Mohammed Amin Rahmouni and bouncer Haitham Zayed into a dusty cut just outside Fort Cavazos and gunned them down over a turf feud. 2 nights later, he silenced teenage dancers Tiffany Dotson and Amanda Benefield so no one could snitch, then bragged to friends. A 2007 Bell County jury needed barely a day to return death. In 2008, Tabler smuggled a cell phone onto death row and threatened a state senator, igniting a statewide prison lockdown. For years, he wavered between appeals and suicidal resignation until, on the 13th of February 2025, he told a chaplain he was finally done fighting. Texas no longer allows special requests, so his last taste was the cafeteria tray: chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, white bread, and fruit punch. Strapped to Huntsville's gurney, he faced the gallery. "I had no right to take your loved ones. I'm sorry." After 12 labored breaths, he went still at 6:38 p.m. Outside, Dotson's father whispered that the apology couldn't buy back 20 lost years. Brad Keith Sigman, South Carolina, March 7th. When Lynn Lark broke up with him in April 2001, Brad Sigman crept into her parents' Greenville home before dawn, beat 62-year-old David and 59-year-old Gladys with a Louisville Slugger, and fled in their Buick. Police traced ATM withdrawals to Tennessee and captured him within 72 hours. A 2002 jury saw photos of blood-flecked lilac wallpaper and voted for death. Sigman spent 2 decades challenging drug shortages, finally choosing South Carolina's resurrected firing squad over the electric chair, saying he feared burning blind. On 7th March 2025, after sharing scripture with cellmates, he polished off 4 pieces of fried chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes, hot biscuits, cheesecake, and sweet tea. The KFC buckets he'd wanted were refused. Hooded and belted into a metal chair, he offered a final plea: love one another, end this violence. 3 rifle cracks echoed. 8 seconds later, a physician marked 8:11 p.m. Protesters sang hymns outside Broad River as Lynn wept. Mom and Dad deserved gentleness. He met mercy they never saw. Jesse Dean Hoffman Jr., Louisiana, March 18th. Mardi Gras beads still hung in New Orleans when 18-year-old Jesse Hoffman kidnapped advertising executive Mary Molly Elliott in March 1996. He raped her under the Claiborne Avenue overpass, drowned her in Bayou St. John. John then pawned her silver bracelet for $40. Detectives matched tire tracks and a boot print. Jurors sobbed through autopsy slides and imposed death. After 28 years of litigation over ineffective counsel, childhood trauma, and, finally, the legality of nitrogen hypoxia, Louisiana built a gas system patterned on Alabama's. Hoffman ate nothing on execution day, instead meditating with a Buddhist monk. At 6:31 p.m., a clear mask hissed. Witnesses said fists clenched, then his chest fluttered for 19 endless minutes. He declined final words. The governor called the event a promise kept, while Molly's widower murmured, "Justice still leaves a hole where laughter should be." Aaron Brian Gunches, Arizona, March 19th. A desert sunrise near Apache Junction framed Ted Price's last sight in December 2002. His ex-wife's new boyfriend, Aaron Gunches, leveled a Glock and fired twice, then dumped the body off SR 79. Gunches was nabbed 2 days later after crashing Price's Mustang during a police chase. He pleaded guilty in 2007, telling the judge, "I own what I did." Years on death row hardened that resolve. In 2022, he famously petitioned the Arizona Supreme Court to please hurry. On 19 March 2025, he left a holding cell number 2 with a grin and a gutful of comfort food: a double Western bacon cheeseburger, 2 ham and cheese sandwiches, fries, onion rings, and baklava. Asked for last words, he shook his head. The pentobarbital flowed. 5 breaths, a snore, silence at 10:33 a.m. Price's sister clutched her brother's dog tags. "He begged to die, but I didn't beg to be a mourner this long." Wendell Ardan Grysom, Oklahoma, March 20th. March 20th, 2025. Oklahoma's death chamber glowed sterile white as Wendell Ardan Grysom, 56, met the needle he'd failed to outrun for 19 years. On a stormy March night in 2005, he and boyhood friend Jesse Johns kicked in Amber Matthews's Watonga duplex hunting meth money. Grysom shoved the terrified 23-year-old to her knees beside roommate Drew Kopp and fired twice. Amber died where she prayed. Drew crawled away, bleeding. Fingerprint-dusted jewelry, pawn slips and phone boasts stitched prosecutor's case, and an anguished jury chose death in 2008. Appeals cited fetal alcohol syndrome and abuse. Every court said no. Execution morning, he ate biscuits, gravy, eggs, hash browns, and a strawberry shake, singing gospel until the curtain rose. Facing Amber's mother, he murmured, "I'm sorry I caused your tears." Pentobarbital flowed at 10 a.m. 13 breaths later, it was over. Outside, Drew told reporters, "He needed 13 minutes to die. He needed 2 to ruin my friend." Protesters prayed in drizzle while officials called the act justice. Grysom was Oklahoma's first execution of 2025, another reminder that one death never truly erases another. Edward Thomas James, Florida, March 20th. Florida's brick wall shook with quiet footsteps as Edward Thomas James, 63, entered the death chamber the same night. On 19 September 1993, a cocaine-hazed James slit Betty Dick's screen door, raped 8-year-old Toni Neuner, strangled her, then stabbed the child's grandmother. A stolen Dodge Shadow and pawn slips led detectives to him 48 hours later. He pled guilty, but an 11-1 jury still chose death. Appeals, pointing to brain injuries, dementia, and a recent heart attack all failed. Governor DeSantis signed the warrant on 8 February, calling the crime ultimate wickedness. At noon, James devoured fried catfish, hush puppies, coleslaw, cheese grits, key lime pie, and sweet tea, then prayed Psalm 23. At 8 p.m., he mouthed a silent apology. Etomidate twitched his shoulders. Potassium stopped his heart at 8:15. Court files note he once bragged in a biker bar, the tip that cracked the case, while jurors wept over Tony's Minnie Mouse backpack. Outside, abolitionists held teddy bears under a banner reading "Stop the Cycle of Blood." James became Florida's second execution of 2025, adding one more figure to a ledger forever short 2 innocent lives. Michael Anthony Tanzy, Florida, April 8th. 25 years after strangling Miami Herald clerk Janet Acosta, Michael Anthony Tanzy, 48, lay beneath fluorescent buzz at Florida State Prison. On 25 April 2000, he carjacked Acosta during her lunch break, beat her, then drove south, stopping for duct tape, razor blades, and ATM withdrawals caught on camera. Near mile marker 21 in the Keys, he strangled her and dumped the body among mangroves, later confessing, "I couldn't let her go." A jury unanimously voted death in 2003. For 2 decades, Tanzy argued morbid obesity, sciatica, and childhood trauma should spare him. Courts never flinched. His last meal, pork chop, bacon, corn, vanilla ice cream, and a Snickers, arrived at 10 a.m. Investigators later found her press badge washed ashore. At 6 p.m., he whispered, "I apologize. May God heal your hurt," before the cocktail silenced him at 6:12. Janet's sister breathed, "Tonight feels lighter. We finally have justice," while demonstrators outside read names of other victims, conceding that executions cannot mend loss. Tanzy was Florida's third execution of 2025, a headline closed. Yet, grief's edition runs on. Mikal Motti, South Carolina, April 11th. A cloth target pinned to his chest, Mikal Motti, 42, stared at Broad River's concrete floor as South Carolina's firing squad took aim. His spree began 14 July 2004 after a Virginia drug deal imploded. He murdered North Carolina clerk Christopher Boggs for beer money, then hid in a Calhoun County shed. When off-duty Captain James Myers opened the door early 18 July, Motti shot him 9 times, doused him in diesel, and set him ablaze. Captured on a Florida beach 3 days later, he pled guilty, calling himself a man running from demons. Drug shortages delayed death until lawmakers revived the firing squad. Motti chose bullets over electrocution. After polishing off ribeye, mushroom risotto, broccoli, collards, cheesecake, and sweet tea, he donated his glasses for inmate literacy. At 6:01 p.m., 3 rifles cracked. Witnesses heard a groan and counted 80 seconds to stillness. An autopsy revealed only 2 bullets hit, fueling fresh debate over botched cruelty. Motti offered no final words, leaving the families of Boggs and Myers grasping at shadows of closure, while protesters' signs warned, "Violence breeds violence." Moises Mendoza, Texas, April 23rd. Rochelle Tollison had just settled her toddler for a nap in Farmersville, Texas, on March 18, 2004, when former schoolmate Moises Mendoza, 20, slipped through her sliding door. He beat, raped, and strangled the young mother, stabbed her twice for silence, then hauled the body to a creek bed, doused it in gasoline, and set it alight. Frantic relatives found scorched clothing behind her house. Police followed the smoke to bone fragments, and cell tower pings placed Mendoza at the scene. Confronted, he confessed, saying he had dreamed of owning Rochelle since 9th grade. A 2005 Collin County jury took 42 minutes to choose death. Appeals claimed fetal alcohol damage and childhood abuse, but the Fifth Circuit noted the sadistic deliberation of the crime. On April 23, 2025, Huntsville guards served the standard tray: chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, greens, bread, fruit punch, because Texas ended custom meals in 2011. Staring at Rochelle's parents behind glass, Mendoza switched between English and Spanish. "I am sorry for robbing you of her life. Sempre amor." The drugs entered at 6:21 p.m. 19 minutes later, he was still. Outside, Rochelle's now 21-year-old daughter Avery whispered, "He wanted her body." He gave me a life of missing pieces. James Lee Ozgood, Alabama, April 24th. Tracy Lynn Brown had survived divorce and was rebuilding life when cousin Tanya Van Dyke and Tanya's boyfriend James Ozgood abducted her from a Chilton County driveway on July 13, 2010. Acting out a torture fantasy, they bound Tracy with duct tape, drove her to a hunting shed, raped her, and slashed her throat while she begged. A neighbor's game cam caught Ozgood's pickup. Deputies found blood-soaked tarps hours later, and Tanya broke first under questioning. In 2014, a jury convicted Ozgood on 2 counts of capital murder. During a 2018 resentencing, he demanded the needle, saying an eye for an eye was the only atonement. He dropped all appeals in 2023. Alabama lets prisoners spend $40 on a last feast. Ozgood refused, eating only the cafeteria hamburger and fries. At 6:30 p.m. on April 24th, 2025, he stared at Tracy's family and did what he had avoided for 15 years, spoke her name. "Tracy, I'm sorry." Mid-apology. The automodate kicked in. He was pronounced dead at 6:35. Outside Holman, Tracy's brother hugged reporters. 5 words, and she's still gone, but at least he finally said them. Jeffrey Glenn Hutchinson, Florida, May 1st. Crestview, Florida, September 11, 1998. Gulf War. Vet Jeffrey Hutchinson staggered home drunk, loaded a 12-gauge and executed girlfriend Renee Flaherty and her 3 sleeping children, Jeffrey 9, Amanda 7, Logan 4. Then dialed 911, muttering, "They're better off." Prosecutors painted a portrait of PTSD, twisted by alcohol. Jurors instead saw premeditation in the spare shells lined on his dresser, and returned 3 death sentences in 2001. For 2 decades, Hutchinson blamed Gulf War syndrome, brain damage, secret government mind control. Every court dismissed the theories. On May 1, 2025, 62-year-old Hutchinson savored a seacoast finale: salmon, mahi-mahi, asparagus, baked potato, iced tea, and asked Chaplain Perry to read Psalm 51. Witnesses said his legs trembled when the curtain rose, but he offered no final words. The lethal injection took 11 silent minutes. Time of death, 8:15 p.m. In the media pen, Renee's brother Tom clutched 4 marigolds, 1 for each victim, and said, "War didn't pull the trigger that night. Jeff did." Tonight, the state answered. Hutchinson became Florida's 4th execution of 2025, a statistic etched over 4 vanished futures. Glenn Edward Rogers, Florida, May 15th. America knew Glenn Rogers as the Casanova Killer, a drifter with easy charm and a trail of dead women from California to Mississippi. Convicted in Florida for the 1995 stabbing of Tampa motel clerk Tina Cribbs, and in California for burning dancer Sandra Gallagher alive, Rogers once boasted of over 70 murders. Arrested after a multi-state chase in November 1995, he spent 29 years filing appeals that invoked mental illness, childhood abuse, even alleged links to the O.J. Simpson case. All failed. On April 15, 2025, Governor DeSantis signed the warrant. At 5 p.m., May 15th, Rogers demolished a Domino's pepperoni pizza, chocolate fudge cake, and a Sprite, then penned a final letter thanking a pen pal who had bought him art supplies. At 6:10 p.m., the curtain rose. He peered at victim families and offered a cryptic smile. "Answers are coming. President Trump, keep America great." The pentobarbital silenced him by 6:16. Tina Cribbs's sister Kim exhaled, He flirted, fooled, and butchered. Tonight he couldn't charm the needle. Rogers was the 5th Floridian and 16th American executed in 2025, proof that even the most slippery predator can be caged by time. Benjamin Donnie Richie, Indiana, May 20th. A drizzling dawn on September 29, 2000, turned deadly when Beech Grove patrolman Bill Toney, 31, pulled over a rust-red Buick whose temp plate had peeled away in the wind. 20-year-old Benjamin Richie, already high on meth and facing burglary warrants, bolted on foot, squeezing through backyard fences. Toney closed the gap beside an alley dumpster. Richie wheeled round, leveled a 9mm Glock and fired twice. The officer's body cam captured a breathless, "Help me, boys," before the lens hit asphalt. A SWAT sweep found Richie hiding under a kiddie pool 6 blocks away. At trial in 2002, a forensic animation showed the hollow point path tearing through Toney's heart. Jurors wept, then returned a death verdict after 3 hours. Richie taunted the widow, "Tell your girls their daddy died dirty." 2 decades of appeals claimed fetal alcohol brain damage. Every court said evidence of planning trumped impairment. Just after midnight on May 20th, 2025, Indiana carried out its first execution in 15 years. Richie's $18.49 last meal, the tour of Italy from Olive Garden, sat heavy in his gut. Strapped to the gurney, he managed, "I love my family. Find peace." Witnesses saw him twitch upright, then relax. Time of death, 12:46 a.m. Officer Toney's daughters, now adults, clutched each other outside the prison gate. He was brave for 3 girls. Tonight, the state was brave for him. Matthew Lee Johnson, Texas, May 20th. 13 years to the day after the crime, Texas returned to the small Garland convenience store that still keeps a framed photo of Nancy Harris, the 76-year-old great-grandmother Johnson, set alight. On May 20th, 2012, he barged in with a bottle of charcoal lighter fluid, robbed $50, 2 packs of cigarettes and candy bars, then soaked Harris and flicked a match. A passing police cruiser caught the blaze. Johnson was arrested within an hour, shirt singed, rolling silver rings he stole off Harris's fingers. She fought for life 5 days before Burns claimed her. In 2013, a Dallas County jury convicted him of capital murder. Johnson admitted guilt, but insisted crack haze clouded intent. Appeals argued prosecutorial influence and mental health mitigation, denied all the way to SCOTUS in 2024. Texas abolished special menus, so his supper was the unit's default. Chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, cornbread, pinto beans, fruit punch. At 6:48 p.m., the curtain rose in Huntsville. Turning to Harris's sons, he said, voice quavering, "I pray she's the first to greet me. I never meant to hurt her. Please forgive me." The IV pushed pentobarbital, 7 breaths, a rasp pronounced 6:53. Outside, Harris's eldest whispered, "Mom taught mercy, but justice had to speak." Johnson became Texas's 4th and America's 18th execution of 2025. Oscar Franklin Smith, Tennessee, May 22nd. At 10 a.m. on May 22, 2025, Tennessee ended a 5-year execution pause by confronting its most notorious domestic violence killer. In 1989, machinist Oscar Franklin Smith, furious over divorce filings, crept into the modest Woodbine home of estranged wife Judy and her teenage sons Chad and Jason Burnett. Ballistics showed he shot Judy, stabbed Jason, and slashed Chad's throat. A bloody palm print matched Smith's mangled hand. Convicted in 1990, Smith spent 35 years claiming innocence, even commissioning private DNA tests that courts deemed inconclusive. drug protocol failures spared him in 2022, but a new single-drug pentobarbital method cleared court review in 2025. On the eve of death, he ordered a wistful childhood menu: 2 hot dogs all the way, tater tots, apple pie with vanilla ice cream. Riverbend officials allowed Reverend Monica Coakley to pray and sing "I'll Fly Away" inside the chamber, a first under Tennessee rules. Smith's last words spiraled from contrition to defiance. "Someone tell the governor the system is broken. I didn't kill her." The injection took 7 minutes. Doctors declared him dead at 10:47 a.m. Judy's siblings addressed press beside poster-sized portraits of the victims. Domestic violence doesn't end in court dates. It ends when we protect families. Protesters rang bells in a nearby field as sunrise glinted off barbed wire. Smith was the 19th U.S. execution of 2025, closing this grim ledger. Yet each name echoes the hard truth that violence births only vacant chairs and forever echoing silence. These 19 executions close court files, but they leave open wounds that no protocol or poison can cauterize. Remember the victims, remember the choices, and remember that every life, even at its darkest, casts ripples far beyond a prison wall. If this story moved you, subscribe and join us in thoughtful debate.